Mercury. I am your interplanetary host, Travis Montgomery. These views reflect one planet and one planet alone. What's happening, everybody? This is Mercury's Cast, episode 89. Today we are going to talk about some type of extreme behavior that some people like to partake in. Like our first-time guest, Chris Mendoza, who is going to be chatting it up with us tonight. Chris, first of all, how are you doing? How was your dinner?
I'm doing awesome, man. It was good. They goofed up our food, which was okay. I'm not a picky person, but they went ahead and gave us what they made, and then they went ahead and fixed their mistake, and so we ended up with twice the food for the same price. So I can't complain. It was a good night.
Nice. You got some take homes for later.
Yeah, man.
You strike me as somebody who might be on like a ketogenic diet or something.
I cycle. It depends on how I'm feeling and really what I'm trying to do with my body. I've done keto, I've done vegan, I've done all sorts of different extremes in terms of nutrition. Yeah.
Good for you, man. And first, I'd like to, before I preface this by saying I'd like to make some lifestyle changes myself, and that your hobby is a professional trainer. I'm not saying I want a lesson right now, but as I'm drinking a cheap beer. How'd you get started? How'd you get started by being a personal trainer, and when did you know that's what you wanted to do?
I was about 15 or 16 years old when I realized I wanted to be a personal trainer. I remember being a teen and thinking, if I could just have someone hold me accountable to actually exercising, I would do it. And I ended up taking my first weightlifting class at the age of 15. It was like ninth grade, and just kind of moved up from there. And I was like, how cool would it be to get paid to do this stuff? And so I just kind of kept the dream alive, and kind of lost my way after I graduated high school and went into my first year of college, and just ran into some troubles with things like addictions and whatnot. And it wasn't until I was 21 years old that I got my start working in a physical therapy clinic. And it was working with trauma patients and people, workers' comp and just everything that you could think of. And it wasn't until around then, combination of that and injuries of my own, that I discovered that I wanted to work with injured people more than anything else. And so when I got my credentials at the age of 23, I decided that I wanted to be a personal trainer that specialized in rehabilitation.
Juanita, I'm sorry that your phone, it just maybe try restarting it. Was that what I saw on the wall when you were in the other room?
Oh yeah, I have my certs up on the wall. Yeah, it's a I got two of my bigger certs. I got my corrective exercise through NASM, and then exercise therapy through ISSA, and then the big one, I'll turn it so you can see it. The one with the black stripe is actually my skydive certification that I got when I graduated.
Yeah, I want to get into that. I definitely want to get into that, but let's get to know you a little bit. Yeah, I don't even know where you're calling from. Where the hell are you at right now?
I'm in Florida. I'm over chilling at the apartment over in Ocala, and just hanging out for the night, man.
That's right. You live where Felony Charles Bennett lives at. Do you know him?
No, I don't.
Oh man, he's an MMA fighter. That's funny.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. Great.
Yeah, I'm trying to get him to come on and have a conversation with him, and I actually hit him up about this week, and he kind of said, "Yeah, he's a little bit out there. He's had a long fight career."
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
the name does sound familiar.
He's a legend. He used to be called Crazy Horse, but he doesn't like that name anymore.
Okay, I know who Crazy Horse is.
He doesn't like that name anymore, so his name's Felony Charles Bennett.
Okay, so I know who you're talking about then.
That's funny, because he's got to be a legend in Ocala, right?
Yeah, my ex-girlfriend's brother, he was actually friends with him. He trained over at Team Trauma, and he he showed me these videos of this guy named Crazy Horse. I remember him like climbing the cage and walking out sideways on all fours and just, yeah, the name definitely, he lived up to it.
Dude, he's an eccentric and he's a character, and the sport of MMA is better for having him around, no matter what happens in his career.
Yeah, it's he's definitely one to not be forgotten. As soon as you said that name, Crazy Horse, man, that kind of did it all.
Yeah, but we can't use that anymore because you don't like it.
Oh, gotcha.
So you got your certs, and this seems more like a physical therapy than it is a personal trainer. What's the difference?
Personal trainers, I don't know, for what I do, I kind of wanted to combine the two because I always had my, initial love of weightlifting and staying healthy, and then seeing, people walk again for the first time and thought, why not combine the two? And, working in therapy for several years, the guy that I worked under was actually a doctor of physical therapy, and he also happened to specialize in like sports rehabilitation and stuff like that. And so, he was kind of like already a very very highly credentialed combination of the two. And I don't have my doctorate. I have several different certs. I just figured I would get as much accreditation as possible to do both of them at the same time. So it's cool. It really changes up the pace of my day and the balance of my schedule. I've had clients that come in and they're like, I want to drop 10 pounds for a wedding, and then the person coming in after is I have MS and I haven't walked for the last 6 years, and walking is, a dream of mine to be able to do again. Just stuff like that. It really mixes it up, and it's cool to literally be able to work with any client that walks through the door for the most part.
That's awesome, man. And that speaks to somebody's character who would choose a profession where they want to help people out and to better people's lives. That kind of is a testament to that you're pretty much just like a kind of a good guy, Thanks,
man. I appreciate that. I say I get it from my mama. My mama loved the world. She passed back in November, and I think that's where I get my love of the world from. It's
man,
great.
It's tough, but you know what? It's better that you watch her pass than for her to watch you pass.
Yeah,
and I've experienced that. But is that who you are giving a kiss to in your profile picture?
Yeah, that's my mom. That was the last time I saw her. Yeah.
Well, dude, you know what? And I'll speak to her right now. I think she did a good job raising somebody who wants to help people for a living. I mean, goddamn.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate
props
it.
to her.
I know she does too. Right
on. What it seemed like was it a long hospital? I don't want to go too far into it, but was it cancer?
I mean, she had been in and out of the hospital for several years. She dealt with issues with her stomach, and the last part that really did it was she noticed back in May of last year that she started vomiting and just noticing that her food wasn't digesting the right way. And anyways, fast forward, they figured out that her stomach had stopped working completely. And the doctors kind of just played hot potato with her until about November, when things started to get serious. And no one really made an executive decision on what to do to help her. And so it was October, right before stuff started getting really bad, that my dad told me I should go up and see her. And she was in the hospital the whole time we were there. But, she was in high spirits, up until the day that she passed. And less than a month after I went up there to see her, stuff just took a turn for the worst, and she was gone. It didn't take long,
Yeah,
but it was
better.
Yeah,
but it's that life's a strange thing, but I can't even call it. Sometimes,
Absolutely.
But it was last November, so it's still kind of recent. But you look like you're doing good yourself. You haven't let it control your whole destiny.
Yeah, I still have my hard days here and there, where I'll have something that I think of, or it still hasn't been a year yet. So we kind of got to cycle through all the holidays still to, to have like my first, this holiday without her or that holiday, so little things here and there, they still hit me. But, I would say today's a good day, man.
Cool. Yeah. I lost a brother and a sister. I won't go into it, but I know exactly how you feel. Straight up.
That's tough.
Straight up. So what's a normal day like for you at your job before we dive into what I really want to talk about?
Well, it's a pretty, I gotta say it's a pretty dope job, man. I really like it. I wake up in the morning and, once I get to work, I'll look at my schedule for the day and see who I have on there. And it's a cool job, dude. I build my own schedule. I work with who I want. It's really as custom as you want it to be. Personal training is such a blank canvas of what you want it to be. Do you want to work with this type of people? Do you want to work with those types of people? What do you want to charge? What hours do you want to work? How many clients do you want to hold at one time? And it's cool because just like anybody else, my moods come and go, and it's cool because I can kind of adjust my job with it. And, if I know that I need to do, only 2 sessions tomorrow to get quality out, or if I want to do 10 sessions tomorrow to get, quality, I have that option, so it's kind of whatever I want it to be. And it's. So
you pretty much own your own company and you make your own schedule. Is that? Yeah.
It's I essentially run my own business. I do work for a company doing it. It's called Zone Health and Fitness here in Ocala, but we have so much freedom, that we kind of run our own business within it. Management doesn't really bother me. I don't really bother them unless it's, something absolutely important, but it's cool, man. We have a lot of freedom in what we do. It's a blessing. Like a couple weeks ago when I decided to fly out to Vegas, I just, I let all my clients know, hey, I'm not going to be in for the next 4 days. And it was as simple as that.
Oh yeah. How was Vegas? What'd you do?
Vegas is really cool, man. We just mostly hung out. We don't really gamble, and I don't really drink too much. So we hung out. We checked out some of the attractions there, and Vegas. I learned that it's a place where it's whatever you want it to be. Kind of like my job. It's, if you want to go out to Vegas, with your family and have a good time and it be appropriate for everybody, it totally can be. Or if you want to, ditch everybody after midnight and you want to go out and act like a madman, you can totally do that too. So there's all sorts of things when I go to Vegas. There's a place out there that I wanted to check out. I'll have to do it next time. It's called Exotics Racing, and what it is, it's a race car track, and you can actually like rent a Lamborghini and drive it on the race car track for like.
Can you get it a little bit lower in the screen for me, please?
Oh yeah, man.
I don't want to cut off the top of your beautiful head.
I appreciate that, man. I just brushed my hair.
So okay, Vegas was. What would you say is like a great, and I don't want to give a best because that would put some of your other clients at like under a privileged role. But what would you say is a good redemption story or a good therapy? Like what's one that stands out for you?
Man, so many. I would say anybody that I helped through either a serious orthopedic or neurological disorder. I've been doing training for about 4 years now. I've seen probably 7 people in the gym learn how to walk again for the first time without an assistive device. And so I would say any of those. I'd say some of my favorite people are Tara Ulrich. I would say Eric Van Wagner. They both had neurological issues going on. Whether it be brain or spinal cord. It's just amazing to see someone, wiggle their finger again, or someone, walk in and you're like, hey, you're not using your cane today, or, hey, you were in a wheelchair last time I saw you, just little things like that. If anything that, is actually going to improve someone's life, and not saying that dropping 5 pounds doesn't improve someone's life, but it's a little bit more significant because this is something that they can, take with them, and they're probably going to keep up with, and they're not just going to, lose it again because they got lazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. I'm glad there's people out there like you that do it. I'm an electrician. I help people out too, and I get a good feeling of satisfaction when I come to someone's house or place of business and bring and hook up a new piece of equipment or, provide a service for them that improves their overall.
You have a skill that not a lot of people have. And it's also one of those skills that, if you don't know what you're doing, you can, it can be a very dangerous situation for you. So big kudos to you for doing it, man. Someone's, we need more people like you.
I just, what I tell people is that as soon as you lose respect for electricity is when it's going to bite you in your ass.
Yeah.
And you always
absolutely.
have to have that line of respect.
It makes sense, man. Absolutely.
What's up, Wes? I'm sorry. So skydiving. Wow. What the hell would compel somebody to jump out of a plane with a damn piece of cloth? So when did you know that you wanted to do that? Because I would probably do it because I'm a little bit of a crazy person. And you have to be kind of a little bit of a crazy person to even consider jumping out of an airplane, a perfectly flying airplane. What's up?
Well, I was, let's see, I was about 4 years old when I saw skydiving for the first time. My dad took me to see the Power Rangers movie in theaters, and it was 1995, I think it was. He took me to see it, and the opening scene is everyone, they're in the airplane, and they're like, all right, guys, let's go, let's do this. And they open the door, and they're all jumping out. And I remember just watching in awe, like, they're flying like birds, Dad, and he started explaining to me what they were doing. And it was at that point I decided that was something I wanted to pursue in my life, like at some point. And when I turned 20, I did my first jump. Last year in July, I did my second. And
how old are you right now?
What's that?
How old are you right now?
I am 27. I'll be 28 in December.
Okay.
Yeah. So
how many jumps have you had?
I'm at jump number 16 right now.
16.
Yeah. So my first two were tandem jumps.
Where you got to.
I had always wanted to go to school. Yeah, I'd always wanted to go to school for skydiving, but it's expensive, and I never really had the money for it. And it wasn't until after my mom passed that I realized, you know what, life is short. Because my mom died, she was 55. I decided that, if there's things that I want to do, I just need to go ahead and do them because it's something that means something to me. I don't care what it costs. And so I went ahead, I paid the money, and it was cool. My very first day of ground school just happened to fall on my mom's birthday. And the way that I really knew that I was supposed to be there was after my first, I was at the drop zone for 10 hours, my first day of skydiving school. At the end of the day, my instructor and we got into talking about why I had chose a Thursday, the day in the middle of the week, why I had chose that day for it. And I said, well, it's my mom's birthday. She died back in November. And he said, it's really funny you say that. He said, because today is my mom's birthday too. And she's been gone for 3 years. And so I just knew right then and there that's where I was supposed to be, and I was on the right track, so I've stuck with it.
Dude, that was a frequency that you tapped into, and you guys were both there. And sometimes, life will tell you it'll point you in the right direction.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was the ultimate bro moment, man. We're sitting there in the middle of the AFF class where we're like broing it up, and it was cool, man. It was a really good day, and it's been nothing but just awesomeness since then. I've learned so much. By my seventh jump, I had graduated the program, so that was pretty neat.
Hi, Nita. So you had a one jump, and then you took some time off, and then now you're just fully invested.
Yeah, I did my first jump when I was 20 because skydiving's expensive, man. My first skydive was over at Skydive Space Center, which is you're in California, right?
Right.
Yeah, so we have the Kennedy Space Center over here where the shuttles take off and NASA and all that, and this skydive center, as you're falling out of the plane, you're actually overlooking where like the shuttles launch from, which is pretty cool. So I did that when I was 20, and it was like $200, man. It wasn't cheap, and it's with my other jobs that I held at the time, $200 was a lot of money for me, and last year when I took my vacation, I went over to Key West. We got the Florida Islands down here, and I did another skydive over the islands, and it's just it's been creeping up on me. And when my tax return hit, and and it was larger than I thought it was going to be, and between that and the money that my mom left for me when she passed, which by the way, like, I remember my mom's caretaker telling me on the phone, she's like, your mom wanted me to tell you, don't save it and feel like you have to hang on to it. She's like, do something nice for yourself. And I was like, you know what, this is going to be it. So I went ahead and did it. My brother helps talk me into it too, because I was like, I got money for it, but I could totally do something else with it. I could put it away. And he's like, man, if this is one of your life dreams, what's holding you back? So did it, man. And I've been invested ever since.
That's fucking awesome.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you.
Yeah. That's great. So, are you involved in any other kind of adrenaline inducing acts, or do you like fight people on the street or anything, or is it just I
mean, I did boxing very, very briefly when I was 21, and it's for just at the time of my life, it was fun, but it just wasn't the right thing for me. I loved, trading punches with people and going home with a busted lip, but it was, a lot of the moving around. It's, I mentioned earlier that I had a little bit of a back injury when I was younger, and that was still when the back was hurting pretty bad. And so a lot of the bobbing and weaving, it just didn't suit me, because at the end of the night, I was always in a lot of pains. So I did that. And then cliff diving was another one of my favorite sports. I did that throughout the age of 23. It's hard to find a place to cliff dive that's also legal to cliff dive, because it's a very dangerous sport. It's also called tombstoning, because a lot of people get killed every year doing it. There's a lot of things that can go wrong during cliff diving. So I haven't done that for a long time, but growing up, skateboarding.
Stop. Cliff diving. Are you in a squirrel suit, or are you in one of those smaller parachutes?
I see what you mean. So cliff diving is more finding like a quarry or some kind of high rocky surface that overlooks really deep water. And so we had jumps here in Ocala. There's some quarries where they used to mine lime rock, and they would dig down until they would hit the water table, and the water would flood it. And so now you have this big basin of water with all these gnarly cliffs that overlook it. And some of these cliffs are as high as 100 feet between the top of the cliff and where I actually hit the water at. And so, yeah, we did that here in Ocala for a little while, but the city started getting on people for it. It became really popular, and we got the cops called on us. Got escorted out of there by the Marion County Sheriff's Office. It was it was pretty stressful.
But you're jumping in water, and people would die that way because they land wrong.
Yeah, people have died that way. Not just at the quarry. I mean, yeah, people have died at the quarry that we would go to, but just in the sport of cliff diving, period, there's so much that can go wrong. You go to jump out and you push a little too hard back. Your feet slip out from underneath you, or you jump out a little too far and you hit the bottom and you break bones, or you hit your head. And there's just a lot that can go wrong during cliff diving, because you're jumping off of surfaces that aren't designed to be jumped off of, and you're hitting water that you don't necessarily know the depth of, unless you either jump into it or find another way down and swim as deep as you can, which, we played it as safe as possible. We weren't totally ridiculous about it, but man, we did some cool stuff. I can send you some YouTube footage. I actually had I did one jump that broke my tailbone. I jumped from 60 feet. It was my very first day cliff diving. And I swam out across the water to where the other guys were jumping from, which was the big one. It was the 60-footer. But by the second jump, I had broken my tailbone, and I didn't realize it until I had sat down on my motorcycle to get myself home. And I had to stand up the entire way because I couldn't sit. It was pretty nasty. But
yeah, my mom broke her tailbone during a pregnancy, and she describes it as being really uncomfortable and painful for a long time.
Oh yeah, man, it's crazy. You can't sit down without feeling like something's jamming you in your rectum. It's a tailbone break is nothing to play with.
Well, some people like that. So
yeah, man. And I mean, it wasn't so bad.
So, all right. So we got skydiving, boxing, cliff jumping, motorcycle riding. You're pretty much an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah, man, it's safe to say. And then I grew up on a skateboard too, so that was, that was my thing. Rodney Mullen and Tony Hawk were the heroes of my childhood.
Yeah, me too. When he did the first 900, man,
yeah,
that shit was crazy.
Yeah, that was amazing. I remember how sketchy that land was, but how just the look on his face of how excited he was to finally hit it, and especially in front of all those people at the X Games, it was
the X Games were kind of new, and he brought skateboarding right into the limelight. I think it was like on ESPN after that, not aired on ESPN, but I think they started covering it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that was cool. Skateboarding for me, I spent a lot of time. I just could never get good at it. Like I could heel flip and board slide, and that was about it. I mean, I could always.
Hey, man, a lot of people don't even make it that far. So more kudos to you, man. You stuck with it long enough to start figuring stuff out on the board. That's cool. No, man.
We're talking years. But I bodyboard. I like to bodyboard big waves. You don't have very big waves out there in Florida, but we do over here, or where I used to live in Southern California.
Yeah. You're right about that, man. You really got to wait for a storm to get anything, worth really riding, and then it's not really safe to be in. But yeah, I would kill to ride some waves out in Cali, man. I don't even know how to surf, but I would damn well learn just to have the experience.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's like you guys get a storm and you guys could surf for a little while, but then run for cover and hamper down because it's about to get crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, man. We got a lot of natural disasters here.
There's already a hurricane out there right now, the first one, and it's kind of early for the season. Did Ocala get hit hard last year? I know a couple places on the East Coast did.
It was actually crazy. During Hurricane Irma, we here at the apartment complex, we barely got anything. Like it was nasty. Don't get me wrong. The winds were roaring and it was sounding really hardcore. But this place is built like a fortress, so we didn't even lose power. And it was crazy because we drove up the road half a mile and we saw where cars were underwater because the parking lot just the way that it's shaped like this. There were cars in the middle of that had water like going in through the windows. Just the flooding, it was ridiculous. So you would never guess that my apartment and this parking lot that was flooded and destroyed were within like half a mile of each other, a mile of each other.
But you guys also have sinkholes and shit too, right?
Dude, you are not lying. Yeah, we got sinkholes. So Four Ranch, So did you guys see when Four Ranch the sinkholes started opening up like a month ago, 2 months ago, something like that? They started getting
last week.
Yeah, so they started getting really bad. Four Ranch is actually a 10-minute drive from here, and that's where my son's mom lives. And I drove over there the day that they were opening up, and we saw the news crews out there. And yeah, dude, sinkholes are pretty big in Ocala. It's a very real thing. Last year we had one that swallowed up a car. Yeah, it was funny because it was right outside of Checkers, and yeah, it kind of makes you think twice about your fast food decisions. So,
Checkers. Yeah, I was going to ask, is that like a burger spot or something?
Yeah, it's like a Rally's.
Okay, there's a couple of those still left out here.
That's awesome. Yeah,
but sinkholes, it's like what is it? It's the I don't even know. It's like the ground starts loosening up under the pavement or something. And there's even worse ones out in the Caribbean or something like that, like some like disastrous ones.
I would imagine. I don't know exactly how it works. I know that whenever you go a while without rain and the ground starts to dry out and then suddenly it gets flooded, I know that there's pressure like on the above ground. And Florida, you don't have to go too far to find the water table, And so I know that, once you have all this extra weight bearing on the earth, kind of starts to give in because you got earth and then you got this gap and then you have the water table, and so because you don't have much going on in between, it's kind of flimsy, and then you have all the weight, it gives in, and yeah, it's pretty crazy. We've seen a monstrous here in Florida. We had one a couple of years ago. I remember watching on the news. The news crew was standing outside of this guy's house. They're like, if you look at the house behind us, doesn't look like anything different from your ordinary house, but on the inside is a totally different story. And they go into depth about how there's a sinkhole inside of the house that actually swallowed the guy while he was sleeping, and dude's dead somewhere underground inside of the house. So I was like, oh my God, this, yeah, sinkholes are crazy.
Dude, imagine, that is not how you want to go. I mean, the earth just swallows you up and takes you hostage.
Yeah, and it's like you'd think, he went in his sleep. It's like, no, he woke up to some noise and then he couldn't breathe. That's a scary way to go, man. I wouldn't want to do that.
That's got to be on the top 10 of like, we don't got to get too morbid here, but that's got to be up there with like just the worst of the worst.
I agree.
All right, back to skydiving. So from jump 1 to jump now, what's different? So you don't have to tandem jump anymore, right? How many tandem jumps do you have to do?
You have to do at least one. After my first one, I would have gone directly to school, but I couldn't afford it. That, and then the drop zone over in Key West, they only do tandems out there. So it was like, whatever, I'll do another tandem. But what's changed? I would just say my knowledge of it. It's so, like, the way that I approach skydiving now is so different from the way that I did whenever I first started out. And I would say the big turnover is whenever you're in school and you start getting into like flying your own body. Because whenever you're in school, you're not attached to anybody, but your very first jump, someone's got you by your shoulder, and then they got you by your pant leg. They have these little grabbers on your jumpsuits. That way the instructors can hang on, and essentially they have you flying on your belly, and they're falling next to you, and there's one on each side of you, and they're grabbing onto you, and they're telling you, here, close your legs a little bit, or arch your body more, stuff like that. And then at one point during the program, they let go and they back up away from you, and they just see how you do. And it's something I wanted so bad, but I was shitting myself the whole time, man. It was freaky as can be, because whenever you put it into perspective of what you're actually doing, I mean, you're plummeting towards the earth at 120 miles an hour, and it's loud, and you have nothing to grab onto, and it's crazy. But once you become desensitized to it, you realize, with little changes, you can totally change how your body flies, like, you drop your left arm, you start to go into a leftward turn. If you turn too much, you drop your right arm, go into a rightward turn, and you learn how to fall slower or fall faster depending on what body, so you start to become more and more like a bird. And then instead of being like scared to death whenever you leave the plane, you start to become excited. And it's a whole different world when you get up in a plane and you're over 13,000 feet in the air and that door just opens. You're like, oh yeah, that's right. Usually planes have the doors closed whenever we're in them, so it's a whole different world, man. But you start to look forward to it. And it's like, what kind of exit can I do out of the plane? Should I backflip this time? Should I front flip? Should I focus on this or that? And it's really cool. It starts to become like a chess game, if I fly myself over to this spot of the drop zone before I pull my chute, I can land on this target or that target, just, it's cool, man. I'm still learning. I still have so much to learn with it too.
So you jump at the same height every time?
Yeah, I have a low jump coming up. It's called a hop and pop. And in order to get your Class A license, you have to have 25 jumps, and one of those jumps has to be what's called a hop and pop. So what a hop and pop is, it simulates like an emergency exit. And so you're exiting the plane at a really low altitude, and that gives you just a few seconds to get your body stable and then reach back and pull your chute. And it's free fall is a little bit different than you'd think, because flying stable is not the most natural thing, especially whenever you're as new as I am. Flying stable is kind of hard to do in your beginning stages, because as the plane is flying, you have all this back, all the wind is going backwards. It's called the relative wind. And so as soon as you jump out of the plane, you you're flying this way, you jump out of the plane, the wind actually like pulls you back, you know, and then you have the winds, because you're falling, you have the wind coming up, then you have your relative wind, and it just kind of sends your body into this weird, you know. So getting stable is really tough, and especially if you're at a low altitude, it takes you a few seconds, you know, you're constantly losing altitude as, you know, the longer you wait. So every little move that you make is important, and staying calm and collected and really in the moment. It's that's what keeps you safe, man.
I imagine. So the fastest you can fall is 120 miles an hour, but
that's the average that you fall. If you were to go like head down, I've heard of people hitting like 280. There's a guy who set a world record for the most time spent head down. And at that speed, if you were to make like a small miscalculation, like in how you should fly your body or something like that, and he ended up flat, he could send himself into a high velocity spin, or, you know, there's a lot of stuff that can happen. But it's crazy because the laws of physics, you know, like when we were going to school, you know, I kind of tried to apply some of the laws of physics to that. And when, you know, I remember doing this experiment in school, and they were like, all right, we're going to take a 5-pound weight, and we're going to take a 10-pound weight, and we're going to drop them at the same time. Which one will hit the ground first? And they would drop them. Both of them would hit the ground at the same time. What you run into at really high altitudes like that is you run into wind drag. And so there's actually a video of me jumping with the Ocala Chief of Police that I posted. And I jumped out of the plane first. And 2 or 3 seconds later, he jumps out after me and actually falls past me, even though I had left the plane first. And so the laws of physics are totally screwed up whenever you're up there.
So it is kind of like in the movies, I guess Point Break would be an example where you could just catch up to people.
Yeah, you could totally catch up to people. It depends on your weight and your drag, you know, which is essentially like your wind resistance. A lot of different things. Like my instructor, Frazier, he wears a special jumpsuit whenever he was doing AFF school with me still, because he's a heavier and more experienced jumper. He's going to fall a lot faster. Even if we weighed the same, because he's more experienced, he can train his body to fall faster. So he would wear this suit that gave him more wind drag, and it you know, and so we would fall at the same speed, even though he's heavier than me. So it's pretty cool, man. You literally customize where you fly, how you fly. It's just like being like a bird, man. It's pretty neat. Yeah, all those little factors playing.
Free as a bird. Has there ever been any kind of complications on the way down for you, or has everything been 100% tip top?
Yeah, I had a lot of hard. I wouldn't say a lot of hard times, but I had a few hard times during AFF, which AFF stands for Accelerated Freefall. So the AFF program, as they're teaching you, whenever you get into freefall, you're supposed to complete certain tasks. You know, sometimes the task will be, you know, reach back, touch your parachute 3 times. You know, look at your alti, look at your instructor, wait for his signal, look at your other instructor, wait for his signal. So you got to remember stuff in a certain order. Whenever you're falling, you know, towards the earth from that high up, and it's, you know, it's that windy, you really forget what the hell you're supposed to be doing. You know, your instincts just tell you to look down and freeze up. And so fighting your natural instincts would be the hardest thing. As far as like uh-ohs, I've made a couple uh-ohs. On my very first jump after I graduated the program, I went to the drop zone, and my first jump, I landed what's called downwind in my parachute, which you're not supposed to do. So just to sum it up really quick.
You got to explain that for us real quick.
Happily.
We've never jumped.
No, it's okay. So whenever you open your parachute, I open my parachute at I pull my pilot chute at 5,500, and by about 5,000 feet, it opens up.
How do you know? Is there some kind of indicator that lets you know how high up you are, or when to pull your chute, or the elevation?
So we wear a device on our wrist. For some of us, it looks like a big face clock. Some of them look like little digital clocks. But if you've ever seen a point of view skydive video, the guys, they're wearing what are called altimeters on their wrists, and they'll look at it every couple of seconds, and your altimeter tells you how many thousands of feet up you are. And so we know whenever we're in the plane, when that altimeter says 13.5, that we're about ready to rock and roll, and we put our helmets back on, goggles, and they open the door and people start bailing out. We know it's time there. Soon as we get out, we stabilize. We look at our alti, see if we're good. Do I have time for stunts?
Does that work off of air pressure?
What's that?
Does that altimeter work off of air pressure?
I believe that's how it works. Yeah, I haven't dipped into the science of it very much yet.
I know the bits work, so that's all. That's good for me.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it works on air pressure. When I went to Vegas, I took my altimeter with me just on the off chance that I would be jumping in Vegas, which we didn't. And when they pressurized the cabin, instead of the altimeter reaching all the way up to 30,000 feet, which is how high like your commercial flight goes, it only went up to 7,000 and it froze there. So I'm guessing that it's all done by air pressure. But yeah, so when you see that you're at about 7,000, that's for a student, you stop doing all your stunts, and then at 5,500 you wave off. So that way if anyone's near you, they know that you're about to pull. This is a signal for I'm about to pull, and then you reach behind you and grab your pilot chute. You throw it to the side, and you wait for it to fill up with air. And as soon as it fills up with air, it yanks your chute out of your rig, and it deploys. Hopefully it deploys. If it doesn't, there's backups. It's actually a very safe sport. You have your main canopy, which is your main parachute. Parachutes are called canopies. If that one doesn't open, you have a cutoff handle over here, and then you have a reserve pull cord over here, which your reserve is your backup. And let's say something were to happen, like I were to be knocked unconscious, coming out of the plane, or anxiety attack, or I forget to pull or something like that. There's a microchip built into the parachute that tells me that I'm too low for my velocity, and it'll pull the chute for me. So it's pretty cool. You could totally fall asleep and free fall and still have a chute open for you. It's pretty neat. Anyways, cool. So when you open,
you have a backup like a big bubble that will just come out, and then you'll just start bouncing when you hit the ground. I
think so. That'd be great, man. That would be great. I think that would be where I would go if they invented that. I'd be like, you know what? That's going to be the discipline of skydiving that I gravitate towards.
Right.
So yeah, I pull at 5,500. By about 5,000 feet, my chute is open, and before I get down to the ground, I get into what's called a holding area. Now, the holding area is where you want to bleed off altitude at, because you're still up high. And once you hit about 1,000 feet, you've already decided which way the wind is blowing. That stuff has already been planned out while you were still on the ground. You decide which way the wind is blowing, and that's crucial information, because by 1,000 feet, you've decided that also,
can't the wind be going different directions at different altitudes?
Yes, so absolutely. Like when I was out there Thursday, they had. So over by what's called the manifest window, where you actually buy your ticket to get on the plane, they have a chart of the different winds, and the winds aloft, at 13,000 feet, they'll be going this way, and then as you get down to 10,000 feet, they'll be going this way, and then 5,000 feet, they're going this way. So it's important to know where your winds are, especially if you're going to decide to open at a specific altitude. Maybe if the winds are crazy at 5,000 feet, I might decide to open at 4,500 where they're a little bit calmer. Stuff like that. So you take all that into consideration. So I would say my biggest getting back to that subject would be when I opened up.
We bird walked off that question.
I know, it's terrible.
It's all right. No, that's great.
Come back and answer it. I didn't want to leave any loose ends untied.
I mean, there's no I got into for this podcast, so I think it's going smooth. But go ahead.
Yeah, man. So I left my holding pattern, and I started my landing sequence. And so after you hit 1,000 feet, you'll leave your holding area, and you'll start traveling towards the field that you're going to land in. So what you want to do? What's that, brother?
What's a holding area?
So the holding area, it's a spot over the drop zone where you're going to circle around, and you use that specifically to bleed off your altitude, because you're still up really high whenever you deploy. And so you're going to circle around a certain pattern in the drop zone to bleed off that altitude. So you're not just randomly flying. I actually saw a guy when I was in AFF. He totally didn't listen to his instructors with the holding area, and he flew into a nearby construction zone, and that's where he landed.
That was going to be another question: is how the hell do you know where you're going to land at? How do you know that?
So on the let's see, I don't have a picture of the field with me, but on the in the actual classrooms, they have a picture of what the drop zone looks like from the plane, and they'll have like, you can see the runway end to end, and then they have like the field where you're going to land. It's like this big triangle in the middle, and so you decide which way the wind is going first of all, and based off of which way the wind is going and how strong it is, you decide what kind of landing pattern you're going to have. And the idea is to land facing the wind. Because if you're in your parachute, you have your parachute propelling you forward. The last thing you want is more wind propelling you forward even faster, because you don't want to hit the ground at 30 miles an hour. Does that make sense?
I'm sure injuries happen a lot that way.
Yeah. And so last thing you want is the wind to your back. And so the idea is leave your holding pattern, go downwind, and then at about 500 feet, turn crosswind. At 300 feet, turn into the wind and land under a nice level wing in an open area. And so I had screwed up when I was in my holding area on my very first day of solos. And it was my – anyways, I left the holding area a little bit late. And I didn't really have time to make my turn. I'd bled off too much altitude. I didn't have much time to make my turn, and I landed with the wind to my back. And I mean, I'm still a student, so I fly one of those big, slow descending parachutes, so I can land nice and cushy.
Like a hot air balloon.
Yeah, and it was the freakiest thing that ever happened. Is I saw this ground just coming up underneath me really fast, and I stuck out my feet trying to feel for the ground, and all of a sudden, boo, 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 boo. Like I felt the shock come up through my knees and my lower back, and I mean I'd been training my legs for such a thing, and I'm really glad I did, because even that night, even though I had been training, I had to ice my knees that night, and then the next morning I had to have ice packs. Frozen peas, because I don't buy ice packs. I had frozen peas on both of my knees to help them, kind of with the swelling. So it was, it was a boo-boo, but I hit up my instructor right after that happened, and I told him what had gone on. And he said, "What did you learn from it?" And I told him. He's like, "Very good."
Yeah. The idea is not to land like this. It's to land in a kind of a parallel manner to the
you don't want to land. I mean, it depends on the wind. You'll have days where you can land straight down, and that's okay. My mistake was having the wind to my back. So instead of like coming in like this, I just came in hot and I smacked the ground. And I stayed on my feet, which was for me that was big, because that was my first hard landing, and I'm really glad that I didn't end up breaking anything in it, because I've heard stories about people snapping ankles, people falling and breaking a collarbone, dislocating a shoulder. It can get nasty if you don't pay attention, and so
that's two questions before we have to cut it. I like to keep it around an hour, especially moving forward now. One of the questions is. Two questions. One was going to be, I'm sure you've heard some war stories, some kind of horror stories about maybe somebody that you jump with knew somebody, or your trainer tells you, or maybe is that a way of people that commit suicide sometimes?
I would say no. It would be really hard to. I'm sure that there's a way to do it, but with what you have to go through in order to get the credentials to leave a plane without anybody attached to you, it's a very expensive process. And then just the fact that you have a rig on that, even if you don't pull the parachute, it'll pull it for you. It's I'd say it's very unlikely, but. I mean, I can't rule it out. I'm sure it's happened.
And some disaster stories, maybe something gone terribly wrong. Actually,
one of the gentlemen that I jump with at the drop zone, he's an absolute legend in skydiving. His name is Carl Doherty. and he's been on Blue Skies magazine and different skydiving articles and stuff like that. And he's got over 19,000 jumps under his belt. The guy is absolutely insane. Literally, whenever you talk to the guy is absolutely crazy. He's out of his mind, and I love him every bit for that. He's he can be a real condescending prick, and sometimes he sings to himself. Other times he talks in rhymes the entire day. But you know what? You gotta love the guy, and there's a lot to learn from him. You'll notice when he turns around and walks away, he's got only one leg. And I've never asked him the story personally, but I heard that that it was a skydiving accident, and it would have been fine. But the medical care that he received, he actually ended up with the amputation, and he still jumps with the prosthesis on. It's really awesome. I give him huge kudos for that. But yeah, it's someone very close and very dear to me. He lost his leg. So it's pretty crazy.
Dude, you and him need to do a podcast together.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome. I think you'd enjoy him.
No, let's try and set that up.
All right, yeah, man, that'd be great.
Last question, or maybe I have another one. The squirrel suits. You know anyone that does that, or is that? I mean, that just seems like the craziest idea ever.
Yeah, I met a gentleman actually on Thursday. He sat next to me when we were on our plane, and the wingsuiters are always the last ones out because they're gonna they fall the slowest. They have more horizontal push than anything. I actually asked him about it and
for about 5 seconds.
What's that, man? I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're cutting out a little bit. Just rewind like 10 seconds.
Okay.
Again.
We good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
So I asked the guy about the wingsuiting, and he said that you're in free fall for like 3 or 4 minutes whenever you're in those things. A regular skydive is about 60 seconds you're in free fall. And so he's falling at a quarter of the speed. And I'm like, man, that is so amazing, But he said he'll select a certain pattern to trace around the drop zone, and then whenever it's time to pull, he'll pull. But yeah, it's pretty cool. And the suit that he had he said the wingsuit was like $3,000 just for the suit. Pretty nuts. Wow. But yeah, man, I don't know too much about that particular discipline of the sport. I would love to learn lots about it, but so far I've only met one person who actually does it.
Yeah, Joe Rogan had the guy that holds the record for it's either the longest or the fastest. Jumping out of a plane with a parachute, super nutty. Jumping off of a cliff in an animal suit. Jesus Christ.
It's pretty crazy.
What do you... Well, you can't, go ride a bull or something. That seems a little bit more safer.
Right.
Apparently they must work. Shit.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I think it's all what you seek out of, what you do. For me, it's freedom. I grew up with a lot of anxiety as a kid. I was very afraid of, the world. And I always saw extreme sports as a way of freedom. I would see people do crazy things or launch themselves off of a half pipe or jump out of a plane. And I'm like, look at them. They don't worry about the same things that I worry about. That's freedom to me, And so that's just what I've always gravitated towards. If I can have an adrenaline rush of some sort and face it and conquer my fear, that's freedom. If you can free yourself from that fear that used to own you, you can conquer anything because it's all up here.
Straight up, man. That's a beautiful. I think that is a good note to end on because that was a beautiful poetry. You don't look like a Mendoza, but Chris Mendoza. Good chats.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate that.
Let's do your brain on some other topics. Maybe we can have a conversation about something else, and we can get your crazy friend. What's his name?
Carl.
I don't want to call him crazy. Let's not, unless he doesn't mind being called crazy.
Crazy Carl. You know what? He'd probably laugh at you if you said that. It's awesome. The guy likes to really dish it out and lay it on thick. So whenever you can give it back to him, it's like you're just speaking his language, man.
Yeah, I speak crazy. I'm fluent and crazy.
I love it. Yeah, man, we're on the same wavelength.
Hell yeah! So this was good. I was tired before we started. I was kind of like, let's see where this goes. But now I'm glad that we did it, man. And let's talk soon. Dude, you're a rare breed. Not a lot of people like to get into jump out of a perfectly safe airplane. So that is that's a testament to your character or who you are, at least.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you taking an interest in it too, man. It's cool. It's always, no matter who you are, it's nice to be recognized by somebody, and the job that you do too is
wise for your age too. You seem pretty wise for your age. I know when I was your age, I was doing a lot of dumb shit, not doing the stuff that you're doing.
I think the key was that I started so young that I was able to come out of it young.
Right on. Cool. Well, this has been Mercury's Cast. Oh, you got to tell the people out there to step their game up. That's how we close this out.
All right, y'all have a wonderful night. Love on one another as hard as you can, and above all, step your game up.
Straight up. Okay. Everyone else out there that has not already done so, and just step your game up. And this has been Mercury's Cast. Coming up on 100 episodes. I can't wait. Later, guys. You don't have to. All right.
Do you like? Do you like?